Alice. Welcome to the Algoma University Professor Spotlight. I'm so excited to have you today to feature our English program a little bit. So I'll start introducing myself. My name is Taylor Nicey. I'm an enrollment specialist at the Brampton campus. And I'll pass it over to you if you could give a little insight into who you are and what led you to the position that you're in now.
Super, thanks Taylor for having me. I'm really excited by this opportunity. So my name is Dr. Alice Ridout, and I have ended up here at Algoma University through a series of accidents, adventures, and serendipity. So the whole academic career was a mistake. I actually left school at 16 to become a full-time tennis player, and that was my goal. And I always thought that academics could come later, so I should get on with the sporting career first. And then just 7 months into that, I had a really serious back injury. And so that was absolutely the end of the tennis career, and I had to go back to school. This was in Britain, so I had to finish A levels, which are usually 2 years in 18 months. And I had to decide what to do with the whole of my life. I'd got this career plan and it had just suddenly come to an end. And of course, one of the things about trying to be a tennis player in England is the infamous rain. So whenever I was competing, I had spent many hours waiting for rain delays to finish. So I had, and this was, I know someone as young as you can't imagine, but this is before smartphones. So we had nothing except books. So I'd read my way through all of Thomas Hardy, Dickens, the Bronte sisters. And so it just seemed like a natural decision to go off and read English at university. And I had no kind of, academic ambitions particularly. My focus was at that time mainly on getting myself well. I went to Durham University, which is a much bigger university than Algoma University, but has the college system. So it felt really small. And I just got wonderful care. I had to have major surgery at the end of my first year. And there were just so many key people who got me through that experience. And so I think that just embedded in me this real love of small institutions that can really treat you as an individual and help you through challenges. And I can still remember the moment where I suddenly decided, this is it, I want to become a professor. And I was sat in a class with Dr. Patricia Waugh, who had already by then published her wonderful book on metafiction. And we were studying Doris Lessing's The Golden Notebook. And it's a really difficult, dense text. It's about why we write, why we read, what can literature do in the world. It's such a fascinating book. And it was just this moment of, this is it, this is what I have to do. So I really applied myself then to my studies. And I actually started what I thought was going to be my PhD at Durham University. I did an MA by thesis and cheerfully sent off all the paperwork to upgrade that to a PhD. I thought I was 18 months away from finishing my PhD, and the university turned around and said, no, because you have British Academy funding, you have to finish the degree you started. So you cannot upgrade. So I was suddenly right back at the beginning of my sort of training all over again. And so I sent off an application to the University of Toronto. I really wanted to work with Linda Hutchin, who was the world expert in parody theory. And I wanted to look at parody in contemporary women's writing. So I sent this application off. Didn't think anything more about it. I got very lucky actually and had the opportunity to be a lecturer for a year just as a graduate student. Durham University had a program where they lent their graduate students to Pulaski University in the Czech Republic because under the communist occupation, there'd been very little training. So they were trying to open up and liberate their liberal arts curriculum, but with no trained professors right through the communist regime. So the chair of the English department had been put to slave labor in a boiler room. Some of my colleagues were the students who had been in the student uprisings. They showed me the place where there were bullet marks in the wall where the forces had shot at them. I mean, I had this wonderful little office that overlooked a courtyard. And in the middle of the courtyard was this empty plinth. And if you looked over the wall, you could see Stalin lying in fragments in the grass over the wall as the statue had been removed. And that was a really moving experience for me. It taught me that I really wanted to do the job. it taught me that universities are crucially important in our societies. When things goes wrong, the university is a kind of last bastion of independent thought. I mean, it really was significant to me to meet people who had, as students, created the uprising that overthrew that occupation. It also taught me that the time-consuming nature of democracy is worthwhile. So I know it takes a long time to make decisions at Western universities, but it's really worthwhile. And so then I got the call, you've got, full ride to the University of Toronto, and off I went. Never been on Turtle Island, never set foot on Turtle Island. And I got on the plane and came to do my studies in Toronto. And from very early on, I would come up to Northern Ontario because I'm really not a city person. And I found Toronto quite difficult, quite challenging. And actually, I used to come up to a place that's not too far. It's just east along the Highway 17 from here. And many times when I was stuck in my thesis writing, a week in a cottage in Northern Ontario is what helped me to write. So I'd really kind of bookmarked this place as somewhere very special that I would love to end up in. But there were further travels after that. I did a year in Japan after my PhD. I was actually born and brought up in Japan, so it was a kind of going home for me. I'd not been back since I'd left at the age of 10. Wow. And then I did a year in Winnipeg. And I did a year at Memorial University in Newfoundland in Corner Brook. So coldest winters, highest snowfall. So I went to get my Canadian, winter badges. Yeah. And then I became a Canadian citizen just a few years ago. And I've been here at Algoma for a decade this fall, a whole decade. Yeah.
Wow, that's quite the story. I personally, I love to travel. So that was super interesting for me to hear about you going all over with your work. Wow. Well, it's lovely that you've ended up at Algoma and brought.
It is. I really love it here.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite class that you instruct at Algoma?
I'm going to cheat a little bit here, and I'm going to pick two because I want to balance them out because they're very different, just to give students a sense of how great a range of courses we have. So one of my really favorite courses to teach is ENGL 2136, which is children's literature, and it focuses on animals. And we have a whole module, which I just really love teaching. And so that course is, a little bit lighter and certainly just great fun. But I want to, as I say, pick another one to give you a sense of how broad our courses are, because the other one that I love couldn't be more different. And that's ENGL 2496, and that's Tracing the Trade Triangle, Stories of the African Diaspora. And that's a really tough course. We start in Africa and we read 20th century novels and 21st century texts that have expressed the experience of the Atlantic slave trade. And so it's, some of those are, as I say, really tough texts. So it's interesting that two of my favorites are, on the one hand, something that's, really enjoyable and quite fun, and the other, really quite difficult material. The other thing I would want to stress is our capstone fourth year seminars, because those we run almost like a graduate seminar, and those are wonderful. They're really discussions. So I've just finished teaching Twice Upon a Time, contemporary retellings of folk and fairy tales, and that's just been a wonderful Friday morning through this lockdown. We've just got together and just chatted for 3 hours about all our favorite retellings of fairy tales. So those are also very special when I get to teach a fourth year seminar.
I love those. Those sounds interesting to me as a very non-English major. Fairy tales, children's literature, things like that. So for my next question, I was wondering, students love to hear from successful people like yourself. What types of careers can come from this degree, from an English degree?
Oh, what can't you do with an English degree? Ask our Prime Minister, right? So you really can go anywhere with an English degree. We've got students who've really wanted to stay in Sault Ste. Marie who are in the local media, in libraries. So quite a lot of students go from their English degree into library studies or digital humanities or public history. So we've got a number of alumni who are with private research companies, continuing to do research. Quite a few people go into teaching. I know that's a much more difficult pathway these days, but quite a few students will achieve that by going overseas for a few years and teaching English as a second language. So this degree is a really wonderful way of opening up those opportunities to travel. There are many law schools who actually list English as their preferred pre-degree for law school. So you can certainly go in that direction. And we actually have a remarkable number of students who continue to really, write, who actually achieve successful grants for their writing and go on to do a master's study in creative writing. And there's so many opportunities to write that are not fully visible because everything you read on the internet has been written. So the number of kind of ghost writing positions there are now behind big corporate websites is quite amazing. So that's another, I think, exciting route. And then I know we don't tend to think of English literature students as entrepreneurs, but many of them are. We've got an alumni who's launched her own business in Toronto, offering administrative support to offices. We've got another alumni who did do our communications at the university for very many years and is now just incredibly successfully launched her own photography company. So it's really exciting what the students go off and do with this degree. Really, really exciting.
Yeah, and I think too, there's always like that thought that, oh, English degree, do you want to become a writer? And of course, a lot of people love to write in an English degree. But I like that point of you saying there's a lot of ghost writers. Like if that's your love of writing, it doesn't mean you have to be a published author. Like you can still be writing every day in your job.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for students who are considering this degree?
Read, and then read some more. Yes, just keep reading until you find the author that really speaks to you. And also be aware, I think, that sometimes you'll come across books that perhaps don't resonate for you now, but then something will happen in your life where that's just the author you need. And so I like to think of it as being a kind of experience of collecting, thinking and stories that you then have with you for the rest of your life to help you through experiences. So as a professor, I often think of myself as basically just making introductions. I put books on lists and I say, meet these thinkers, writers. And I think for students, just being aware of what a wonderful resource all that reading may well be to you later in your life is really, really important. And if you're specifically thinking about coming to Algoma, then contact us. We really are friendly. So you have absolutely no excuse for not having all the information you want because we're really, really happy to share it.
Do you have I want to ask if you have a favorite all-time book / is there a book that has really spoke to you over this last year?
Well, the first one is definitely Doris Lessing's The Golden Notebook. And it's a very difficult book. It's not enjoyable. But yes, that is a book that I just come back to again and again. I really, really love that book. This year, that's an interesting question. I think at this point, a lot of the writing that I'm reading to kind of help through the experience of the pandemic is journalism rather than longer text, sort of observation pieces and pieces that are just reflecting on what we're going through and just, thinking through what this might mean and how we're all feeling. And so I found that really valuable.
Yeah, to read a piece on a different angle that you've never considered before. I'm like, oh, take that with me. I like that. Moving on to talk a little bit about your time at Algoma, specifically, I want to know, why do you enjoy instructing at Algoma? You mentioned the small class sizes, the community. There's lots of reasons. Maybe you have a few.
Yes, I know it's perhaps the cheesy one, but it's the students. I mean, they're so kind. They really look after each other. I see students, because we hold a number of public events on campus where we've invited writers. I will see students who've graduated, even when I first arrived 9, 10 years ago, and the affection that you can just see, so sincere in their faces when they see each other, is just wonderful. So I think it's not just how the students are to me, but just how kind they are to each other, and how much they create a cohort and really support each other. That's really, really special here. And I think that's quite difficult to achieve at bigger universities, where you're scattered through lots of courses, and even if you take a class together, you may be in a different tutorial, so you're not having the same discussions. Whereas our students, it's not just that we have a small class, but then we have a small cohort. So we see how we all, progress in our thinking through time, and that's just really wonderful. And of course, I've already mentioned it, but the location, that Northern Ontario is such a special place. It really is stunningly beautiful. This region of Bawating is stunning. So it's for me, I love being outdoors, so it's just beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It is a good location. I totally agree. So to end off this interview, I like to ask all the professors, how do you bring the thunder, aka what makes this program at Algoma U so special?
Well, I cheat. I allow the students to bring their thunder, and then we have loads more thunder in the classroom. But joking aside, that is something you can expect from the English program, that you will be given an opportunity to bring what interests you, what you find fascinating about the books that we read to the classroom. And I think that really is what is special, because you have such then diversity of perspectives. And there's something about when that happens, when a community of readers really click and treat each other with that kind of mutual respect, create on my own. So I think that really is where the thunder is in our program. But we also have some really special opportunities that I think are worth mentioning. So we have a program called Algoma Reads, where we invite the 5 authors of the CBC Canada Reads books to campus, and we hold those as community events, and the students enrolled in the Algoma Read courses actually host those events. So you're getting experience of hosting and interviewing literary figures. So you're kind of working in the literary culture industry in those experiences. And I think that's really, special opportunity. We have the Hayes Jenkinson lecture every other year. So we've had some incredible, nationally known authors come to campus and speak to us. So those are really valuable opportunity. And then we also have a number of student employment opportunities. Nice. So quite a number of students have gone into digital humanities after working on the George Whalley archive with my colleague, Dr. Michael DeSanto. So I think there are lots of things that you can get out of our program in addition to just the courses.
Yeah, a lot of great opportunities right at your fingertips. That sounds amazing. It was so lovely having you here today and teaching me and the prospective students a little bit more about the English program. And it was really nice to meet you, Alice.
And you, Taylor.
So thank you so much for joining me. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, and you.